Welcome to my video on comparing and ordering real numbers. So we can compare, order, and determine equivalent relationships among fractions, mixed numbers, decimals, integers, numbers written in scientific notation, radicals, pi, and percents. So we're going to compare the following using less than, greater than, or equal to. And remember, when we compare, we can use cross products if there's two fractions, or we can use the middleman, which means to find the decimal. So we have two fractions here, so let me show you the cross products trick. So we can do 5 times 5, which is 25, and 4 times 8, which is 32. How does 25 compare to 32? It's less than. Now we could have changed them to decimals. This is 625 thousandths. This is 8 tenths, and so it's less than. Okay, when comparing numbers written in different forms, we first convert to decimals. Or we could convert to percents. Some of you might be more comfortable converting to percents. That's up to you. So 62.5%, to change a percent to a decimal, remember we move it 2 to the left, put the decimal right here. So it's 625 thousandths. And this one, 2/3, if I type it in, I get 0.6 repeating. So when I fill in the numbers here, I'm going to fill in sixes, not zeros. And 625 thousandths is clearly less than 666 thousandths. Okay, let's look at some more examples. It says, compare the following using less than, greater than, or equal to. So we have the square root of 49. The square root of 49 is 7 because 7 times 7 is 49. 9 and 200ths times 10 to the negative first. The exponent is -1, so that means move 1 to the left. So we have 902 thousandths. And so 7 whole, we can fill in a 0 here, is much greater than 0 and 902 thousandths. So put a greater than symbol. Okay, the next example, this is already a decimal, so we need to convert this. The square root of 9 is 3. Remember, when there's a negative in front, that means the 3 becomes negative, so it's -3. So -3 and 2/10. How does it compare to -3? It's less than, because remember, the farther it is away from 0, the smaller it is. So -3 and 2/10 is farther away from 0 than -3. Okay, the square root of 40. If you type it in, it'll be 6.32 ... 33/5 is 6 and 6/10. I can drop in a 0 to compare, and you can clearly see that this is less than. And the next example, 325%. There is no decimals, so we're going to start here, 1, 2 to the left. So it's 3 and 25 hundredths. Remember that pi is 3.14 ... And so 3 and 25 hundredths is greater than 3 and 14 hundredths. Okay, here we have 2/7 is greater than blank is greater than 2/9. And remember, that means in between. So which decimal could be written in the blank to make it true? So we need to change 2/7 to a decimal. So 0.286. And then this one is 0.2 repeating, so we can fill in 2's. So 286 hundredths, 222 hundredths. We're looking for the one in between. And it's choice B. Okay, go ahead and turn the page, and let's look at some ordering now. Okay, it says list the following in order from least to greatest, and I always like to underline what it is I'm doing. So least to greatest. And our steps are use the middleman and change all the decimals, or if you prefer percents, do that when you're on your own. Stack to line up the decimals, insert zeros if necessary, and then finally order. And when we order, we're going to use the original form. So we're going to use these numbers when we order, but we're going to change them to decimals to compare them. So 1 1/3, we need to figure out what 1/3 is, which is 0.3 repeating, but there's a 1 in front, so this is 1 3/10 repeating. 30%, we're going to move it 2 to the left, so this would be 0.30. 300ths is already a decimal. 3/8 is 375 thousandths. And this last one, 312 hundredths times 10 to the negative first, we're going to move it 1 to the left. So 0.312 or 312 thousandths. Now, we're going to come over here and line them up so we can compare them. So 1.3 repeating. Then we have 0.30, and we can drop a 0 in front as that placeholder. 0.03 or 300ths, 0.375 or 375 thousandths, drop a 0 in front, and then finally 312 thousandths, drop a 0 in front. Now notice these last two examples have 3 numbers after the decimal, so let's make them all 3 numbers by dropping zeros. But wait a second, I can't drop a 0 here, I have to drop 3s because it's repeating. Okay, I'll check up here. It says least to greatest, so I'm looking for anything that starts with a 0 because that starts with a 1. And we have 312, 375, 30, or 300. So 30 is the smallest. Then we would have 300. Then we would have 312, and then 375. And the one that began with a 1 would be the largest, so we put that at 5. Now remember, I'm not going to order these, I'm going to order the original form. So the first one was this one right in the middle, so it's 0.03. Then we have second, we have this one, which was 30%. Then we have the last one, which is 3 12 hundredths times 10 to the negative first. Then we have 375 thousandths, which was 3/8. And then finally, 1 1/3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and box this in. This is my final answer. Okay, let's look down below, and we have some practice. So it says, order the following from least to greatest, ascending order. So you're going to see this word, and we need to know when we see ascending, it means least to greatest, so underline that. Convert all the decimals, stack and line up your decimals to make ordering easier. Okay, the first one, square root of 49, is 7, because 7 times 7. This one's already a decimal. 7 7/10 is 7.7. Negative 71.5%, we need to change that to a decimal by moving it 2 to the left. Remember to put the negative in, so negative 0.715. And then the last one, 7 2/10 times 10 to the negative first. Move it 1 to the left, so it's 72 hundredths. Okay, so we're going to come over here and line them up. So 7 whole is 7 decimal. We have negative 71 hundredths. We have 7 7/10, negative 715 thousandths, but remember we can put a 0 in front of the decimal. And then 72 hundredths, once again we can put a 0 in front of the decimal. Now you notice this one has 3 numbers after the decimal, so we can drop zeros here to make sure everybody has 3 numbers. And now we need to remember we're doing least to greatest. So if there's negative, those are going to be the smallest. So we have this one and this one. And remember, the farther away from 0, the smaller it is. So this one is my smallest, followed by this one. Now, least to greatest, so we're looking for anything that starts with a 0. So we got rid of these two. So this one starts with a 0. So put that one. And it leaves these two. So 7 whole or 7 and 7/10. It would be 7 whole and then 7 and 7/10. Now when we order, we're going to order the original. So this one came first, which was 70 negative 71 and 5/10%. Second, we had this one, which was negative 71 hundredths. Third was that last one, 7 and 2/10 times 10 to the negative first. Then we had the very first one, which was the square root of 49. And finally, this one is last, 7 and 7/10. Go ahead and box that in. And let's move on to example number 2. Okay, order the following from greatest to least, and that is descending order. Descending, you can remember it going down, so that's greatest to least. Stack and line up your decimals to make them easier to order. Okay, 15%, we're going to move it 1, 2 to the left, so 15 hundredths. 7/4, 7 divided by 4 is 1 and 75 hundredths. 115 thousandths is already a decimal, so we're going to skip to 1 and 1/5. 1/5 is 0.2, so put the 1 in front, 1 and 2/10. And then the square root of 3 we would have to type into our calculator. So the square root of 3 would be 1.732. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, now let's line them up. So we have 15 hundredths, drop a 0 in front. We have 1 and 75 hundredths, 115 thousandths, 1 and 2/10, and 1 and 732 thousandths. Okay, we can drop zeros here, and here, and here. Okay, remember, we're going greatest to least. So we have zeros and ones, so we're going to start with the ones, and we have 750 thousandths, 200 thousandths, or 732. So of course, this one would be the largest. Then we're picking between 732 or 200, so 732, and then finally 200. And now we have 150 thousandths or 115, and since we're going greatest to least, this one's going to go next, followed by this one. Okay, remember when I order, I'm going to do the original, so this one is first, which is 7/4. The last one was the square root of 3. The third one right here would be 1/5. And then we have the first one, which was 15%. And then finally, 115 thousandths. Okay, let's move on to example number 3. So it says, order the following from least to greatest. Plot each number on the rational number on the number line to help you put them in order. Okay? And it shouldn't say rational number. Let's change that to real number, because these aren't all rational. Okay, so the square root of 2 is 414 dot dot dot. This one's already a decimal. The square root of 4 is 2. 7.5% would be 1, 2 to the left. So 0.075. And finally, 9/8 would be 1 and 125 thousandths. Okay, so we need to put these on the number line. So this first one, 1 and 4 tenths with a little bit after it, would be slightly after 1 and 4 tenths here. So we're going to call this the square root of 2. 55 hundredths would be between 5 tenths and 6 tenths, so right in the middle, right here. Square root of 4 is 2 whole, so that's easy to see right here. And then 7.5% is 75 thousandths, which would be before 1 tenth, so right about here. And then finally, 9/8, 1 and 125 thousandths is going to be right about here. And put 9/8. Okay, we don't have to rewrite it. They're already in order from least to greatest, so we are good to go. Okay, number 4, which statement is not true? Okay, so the first one says 89 hundredths. This is 89 hundredths, and 89%, 1, 2, would be 89 hundredths, so that is true. So we're going to cross it out because we're looking for not true. Okay, 9/25 is 0.36. We know that 36%, 2 to the left, is 0.36, so they're all 0.36, so cross it out. 1 and 7/8 is 1 and 875 thousandths. That works, but look what happens here. 1, 2 to the left, 0.1875. So we're thinking this, but let's double check. 1, 2 to the left, 0.025. This is 25 thousandths. That is 25 thousandths. And then this one, 1, 2 to the left, it is 25 thousandths. So the correct answer is C. Okay, our fifth and final example. Which number is the greatest? So let's box this in so we know what we're doing. We're looking for the greatest. So 2/5 is 0.4, so this is 2 and 4 tenths. 8 divided by 5 is 1 and 6 tenths. This one we have to move it 2 to the left. So 2,025 ten thousandths, and this one is 2 and 25 hundredths. So we can drop a 0 here. So we have 0, 1, 2, or 2. So we're looking at either A or D. So we have 2 and 4 tenths compared to 2 and 25 hundredths. We can drop a 0, and which one is clearly bigger? Hopefully you said this one. So the correct answer is A. That concludes our notes on comparing and ordering real numbers. I hope you have a great day.